We're up here on top of Mount Marcy, just waiting for the sun to rise. Day 2 of the Northville Placid Trail is in the books. Well, life doesn't get much better than this open ridge walk on Jay Mountain, and we're at the summit of Lower Wolfjaw, our 8th high peak of the day here on the Great Range Traverse. Well, it's 4:30 a.m., heading a big slide today, and it's negative 4 degrees here at the parking lot. Bushwhacking our way up Green Mountain, and I have to say, the trees are winning this fight today. Well, the sun is shining and the wind is whipping here up on Haystack. Next stop, Saddleback Cliffs. Cock-a-doodle-doo from the summit of Rooster Comb. Scarface might be the most underrated hike in the entire park. 60-mile-an-hour winds up on Hurricane. Very fitting, cruising up the Bald Rock slab here on Bald Mountain. Standing up here on the summit of Catamount Mountain, Iroquois, Mount Van Hovenberg, Skylight, Santanoni. You're listening to the 46 of 46 podcast. Climbing mountains is arguably more popular today than it ever has been in the history of mankind. Putting in the work to ascend a mountain and making it to the summit, it's rewarding both physically and mentally. For many, it's even a spiritual activity. But no matter what a person's reason is for climbing mountains, we can all agree that it doesn't take long to just fall in love with that feeling of walking on the trails, climbing up the rocks, the aroma of those spruce and pine forests, the sounds of the leaves on the hardwood trees, and of course, the magnificent summit views that reward us on top. It's a feeling that I've found to be completely unmatched in life. And often we set our sights on our destination and we tend to forget about the journey itself. But I find when it comes to scaling mountains, the journey itself is just as enjoyable as the destination up top. You know, the summit views, they're unbelievably satisfying, but so are the rivers, the animals you'll encounter, the sounds, the smells, the trees, and the entire natural world around us when we venture into the great outdoors. People in society today, they're retreating to the outdoors in record numbers as they seek to unplug from technology and recharge their batteries out in nature. Personally, I think this is a fantastic thing. And I know what a life in the outdoors looks like, and I know how life-changing it's been for me personally, and I can only hope to share those same joys with others and encourage others to head into the outdoors, which is half the reason that I have this very podcast that you all find yourself listening to at this very moment. And sure, more people outdoors means more people on the trails, in the parks, on the lakes, and in the woods, but hey, there's always places that you can go out in nature, especially here in the Adirondack Park, to avoid those crowds if that's what you're seeking. Personally, I feel like when I come across people in the woods, I look at it as coming across people who, like me, enjoy nature. We have something in common right off the bat. And there's always going to be some bad eggs out there who disrespect the mountains and the woods, of course, but for the most part, the overwhelming majority of people that you'll encounter on the trail or at the lake or on the rivers clearly enjoy those same experiences that you enjoy. Now, the outdoors, it's the great equalizer. The mountains, they don't care about you. They don't care about your politics. They don't care about your beliefs or your bank account or anything else. We are all the same out there, and I love that. With this in mind, and after a recent sunrise hike up Cascade and Porter, I decided that it was time to do a hiking etiquette episode where I'll dive into the sort of unwritten rules of the trail. Most of us learn these rules of sorts on our own over time, or some of us sadly from being shamed on social media, which I do not encourage. And I hope this straight-to-the-point episode will help alleviate and shorten that learning curve for some of you, especially the new hikers and campers out there. And I say it often, but unless people have a good experience in the outdoors, they will never become an advocate for the outdoors, and especially for the Adirondacks, the place I'm lucky enough to call my home. And I want there to be as many advocates as possible for this land that we all love. So this episode goes out to all you internet trolls out there who always seem to look for people to pounce on in forums on social media, simply to shame people who likely just weren't aware of proper hiking and outdoors etiquette in general, all in the name of just, pounding your chest and letting other people know just how experienced and outdoors-minded you are. So I hope this episode gives you a lot less people to pick on out there in social media world. And for all you new hikers out there, this is for you. And no, before the emails come in, this is definitely not, it is not, a jab to the notorious yet also beloved Adirondack Fun Police Instagram page. Because I've said it many times in the past, and he's even been a guest on this podcast, I fully support him, I fully support his mission, and his page, and in my opinion, he goes about educating people and nudging them in the proper direction the right way, the respectful way, the way that puts the mountains first. And now I cannot say the same for some people that I see constantly berating people on social media. And I'm not going to name names, even though there's probably 3 or 4 that are in my head because I always see their name pop up and their comments to people are just gross and nasty. But instead, let's just dive in and go over some basic hiking etiquette subjects so that if you're new to hiking, you're new to the outdoors, you'll be ready for an enjoyable day in the mountains. And I hope you'll take this information to heart and apply it the next time you're out in the woods. So let's start by defining the word etiquette. Dictionary.com defines it as the customary code of polite behavior in society or among members of a particular profession or group. In general, etiquette is about being polite, plain and simple. Really easy. When you're out there hiking, it's important to make sure your adventure is not taking away from someone else's adventure, the same way that you wouldn't want them taking away from yours. You know, the golden rule, anyone? Treat others how you want to be treated, right? So the point of all of this is for everyone to abide by an unwritten code so that we can all enjoy the experiences and be polite and respectful of the land, the animals, and of each other when we're out in the woods. So let's dive in. Hiking Etiquette 101, grab your notes, and here we go. Number 1, know and follow the rules and regulations of wherever you're exploring before you head out. So this will alleviate a lot of problems and put you on the correct path to having proper etiquette when you're out there. While many people think going outdoors should be just a lawless adventure to do whatever the heck you want, you'd typically be wrong to have that mindset. And as a punk rock person by nature and being someone who typically has a genuine distaste for government rules and being told what to do, I will say when it comes to the great outdoors and the land, I am actually okay with some rules and regulations that are designed to actually protect that very land. So wherever you're going, whether it's hiking in a national park, camping in the 80K, or Vermont or New Hampshire or wherever, or even visiting your local parks, you can find outdoor recreation regulations online at any of their respective websites. And this is especially crucial when it comes to fire regulations and if fires are allowed in the area that you're recreating in. Also, what a great time to remind all of you listeners that campfires are illegal in the High Peaks Wilderness Zone in the Adirondacks, and elsewhere in the Adirondacks, they're only permitted in designated spots. So if you're unsure of the regulations where you're going, a quick Google search of outdoor recreation rules and regulations in X being where you're going, that should do the trick. You all know how the Google machine works. What a time to be alive, am I right? But knowing the deal for the area, the mountain, the trails, the rivers, or wherever you're headed, it's a great way to start, and the information you're going to learn is worth knowing ahead of time. And it's proper etiquette. Moving on, number 2, respect any posted signs regarding closures, wildlife protection, or any other information. If it's closed or it's someone's private property or they're protecting the land or animals, just respect it, move on, and let it be. Remember, we're the guests out there in the woods. It's a privilege to explore the land, and let's remember to keep it that way. And now, granted, access to public land is a right of the people when it comes to the government, but it is still a privilege when it comes to the mountains and the outdoors itself. When we approach it with that mindset, we set ourselves up to naturally respect the land that we're visiting. Moving on here in the 46 of 46 podcast, Hiking Etiquette 101, number 3, be prepared. Yes, it's appropriate to be prepared for whatever your adventure entails, whether you're climbing a mountain, paddling a river, camping, fishing, or whatever you find yourself out there doing. Have the appropriate gear, the clothing, the maps, the food, and whatever you need to get yourself to the destination, and more importantly, back to the trailhead or your car. Check the weather beforehand, do your homework, and then also inform other people of your entire itinerary and prepare accordingly so you set yourself up for a safe and successful backcountry adventure. Next, number 4, let's discuss etiquette on the actual trail itself. I know most of you listening to this podcast are avid hikers, so let's talk about hiking and when it's appropriate to yield to other hikers. Now, you may or may not be wondering, James, who has the right of way when passing people on the trail? And I'm going to answer that for you. Many of you listening may already know this, but many of you may not, and that's why we're doing this. But now you'll know once and for all. The right of way generally goes to the hikers going uphill. So if you're coming down the trail and someone is coming up, just step to the side and let the person go up, pass by. And don't forget to say hello and wish them a nice day, but more on that subject later. But the general rule is hikers going uphill have the right of way because they're putting in the arguably harder work in that moment, going up the mountain, and because they don't typically have as good of a vantage point compared to hikers who are already above them on the trail coming down. Speaking of stepping aside to let people pass, if someone is hiking faster than you are, just step aside and let them quickly pass by you. If you feel someone catch up to you from behind and suddenly you kind of feel and notice someone behind you and they weren't there a minute ago, well, there you go. That means they're clearly moving faster than you, and the appropriate thing to do is just to let them pass you and let them keep going. It's typically pretty obvious, but I tell you may be surprised how long it takes some people, especially when they're in a big group, to just step aside and let the faster hiker go by them. I have hiked behind people for a little while before I've had to ask, hey, you guys mind if I pass by? And it's always kind of amazed me that they don't take the social cues of, clearly I'm moving at a faster pace. Can I just sneak by you? But hey, that's why I'm doing this episode. Now you'll know. So with that said, if you are the faster hiker and you're trying to pass a group that isn't quite catching the hint and offering to let you pass, it's completely fine to be direct and polite and just simply ask, hey, would you guys mind if I quickly pass by? In that case, they should hopefully step to the right side and let you pass on the left. Just like we do when we're driving a car, slower traffic on the right, it applies on the trail too. Now, when it comes to trail runners, however, I always just step to the side as soon as I see them, no matter which direction they're coming, whether it's up or down. I'm not a trail runner myself, but walking up mountains is hard enough, and to run up them, oof, that is next level, and you have all of my respect, all of you people who are running up mountains. Number 5, now that I've hit the appropriate yielding scenarios, let's chat about chatting. Specifically with other hikers that you pass on the trail. Now, call it my pet peeve, even though I call it common courtesy and just being a quality human being. But it never kills anyone to simply acknowledge hikers you pass on the trail with some sort of light eye contact and just a simple, friendly, hey, hello, enjoy your hike. Now, I'm a believer that the outdoors should be a friendly place amongst us humans who recreate there. It's so much more awkward when you pass people on the trail who just stare at the ground and they don't even acknowledge your existence, just like a robot. It's just weird behavior to pretend that they're not there. Now, if that bothers you, I want you to press pause on this podcast, go in your bathroom, stare in the mirror, and start working out whatever issues that you need to work out within yourself if you think just simply acknowledging someone and saying a little simple hello is a problem. I mean, come on, we're meeting in the woods. We're miles back from anything. It's not like we're running into someone on a busy sidewalk. So it's just so much more awkward when they stare at the ground and they don't say anything. A simple smile, a simple hello, and then you continue on with your hike. That, in my opinion, is proper etiquette. It's polite, and there's really no valid argument against it, in my opinion. If you're arguing against it, you're arguing against a gentle hello. It creates a warm and friendly atmosphere when you're out there, which, again, it's a better atmosphere than awkward silence. Personally, I love quick, those little 30-second chats that you have with other hikers as you pass to see how their day's going, where they're coming from, where they're going. It's fun. It's casual conversation. It's, between two people who, they're doing the exact same activity. And that activity is climbing a mountain. Climbing mountains is hard. Talk about instantly having something in common with one another. Now, I'm not saying that you have to always stop and chat and have an actual conversation, even though I love doing that. I'm just simply saying, just acknowledge other people with the bare minimum of a smile, a little eye contact, and a simple hello. It's a significantly more appropriate behavior than just staring at the ground in silence and completely ignoring the existence of other people in the woods passing you. So yes, bare minimum eye contact, a simple hello, it's better etiquette than awkwardly pretending that other hikers don't exist. Now, I also understand it may be annoying to say hello to so many people on days if the trail is packed, but in the end, I do stand by my desire to create an inviting and friendly atmosphere as fellow human beings by offering warm greetings to one another. And a simple hello, it's pretty quick. And I always feel that we can elevate ourselves to be better, even if it means stretching ourselves outside our comfort zones in the name of personal growth, just a little bit. If you don't want to say hello, but you get yourself to start saying hello, I think you'll find yourself having a better time. But if you're too cold and, too bitter for that noise, well, I'm still going to give you the warmest, politest trail greeting anyways. Even if I get nothing in return, you are going to get a hello from me. All right, moving on. Now, next I'm going to talk about noise. We all know how popular Bluetooth speakers are, right? The 46 of 46 podcast Hiking Etiquette 101 course says, leave those things in your car. As we discussed earlier, we want to be polite to others, and in the same way that you don't want to listen to someone else's blasting music on the trail, they don't want to listen to yours either. And neither do the animals. Music coming from a speaker simply just doesn't belong out on the trails. And yes, I'm not your father. You can technically do whatever you want to do, and that's fine. Etiquette is really just an unwritten set of rules. But for the sake of this episode and trying to help new hikers avoid some mistakes and get them on the right track when it comes to proper hiking etiquette, nix the speakers. Some of you may beg to differ, and hey, that's fine. That's fine. I'd love to listen to your argument for it. However, I would just simply disagree with you. Want to listen to tunes? Maybe a podcast? Hey, no problem. Toss on some headphones and let it rip. I would, however, recommend in that situation wearing just one headphone, maybe one earbud. That way you can still hear the surroundings, whether it's another hiker coming up on you, animals, or, the nigh wolf approaching you from behind ready to attack. It's very necessary to be aware of your surroundings out in the woods, and having two headphones in versus one dramatically limits your ability to do so. Moving on, number 6, time for some trash talk. Let's talk trash. If you carry it in, carry it out. Everything, every time, banana peels and all. Yep. Even your banana peels and your apple cores and your peanut shells, and especially your legitimate garbage like wrappers and plastic bags. If it came in your backpack, it should go home in your backpack. Real simple, real important. This, along with a lot of what I'm talking about today, goes right along with the 7 leave no trace principles, which I'll get into at the end of the episode. But yes, some of these items are biodegradable, but none of them grew out in the woods. And when you're exploring and if you throw it on the ground, you are actually introducing something to the land that doesn't belong there. Will it ultimately cause any real harm, especially if it's biodegradable? Probably not, but it's the principle behind it. If you carried it in, carry it out. Leave no trace. That means don't let people know you were there. That's the desire. That's the principle, what we're trying to accomplish. If you see an orange peel on the side of the trail, it clearly was tossed there by somebody, thus showing a trace left by humans and thus potentially taking away from someone else's experience out there. Yes, we know that other people hike there. We get that. We see footprints, but there's something different between seeing trash and seeing footprints. Now remember, the definition of etiquette and how we're trying to respect other people the same way we want to be respected. We don't want their orange peels on the trails or in the woods, and they don't want to see ours, and neither do the mountains or the animals. So along with picking up all your trash and taking all of it with you, I am a firm believer in treating the mountains with the most respect and admiration as possible. Therefore, if you do come across someone else's trash and you want to go above and beyond because the mountains, they deserve it, do not be afraid to pick up that garbage. Is it annoying? Absolutely. Is it necessary? Yes, it is. Most of the time, it's probably just a piece of garbage that innocently fell out of a backpack, and other times it may be a baby's diaper and dog poop. I'll get to that later too. So I do totally understand, not picking up some trash that makes you uncomfortable, people's cigarette butts and all these things. But in general, if we take the mindset and the mentality of being willing to go above and beyond when it comes to picking up loose garbage on the trail, all in the name of the mountains, we will collectively do a very good job keeping these wild places what they should be. It's basically just going above and beyond because we love the mountains that much and we want to take care of them. So to sum it up and reiterate, if you carry it in, carry it out. Everything, every time, banana peels and all. I swear I've heard that saying somewhere before. Number 7, it would be a real waste of a podcast on hiking etiquette if I failed to talk about your waist. Yeah, I'm talking about going number 1 and number 2 out there. According to Leave No Trace principles, we should move at least 200 feet off trail and be 200 feet away from any water source before doing our business out in the woods. When it comes to the Adirondack Mountains, however, in my mind, this isn't safely feasible all the time. So listen up. Due to the dense woods, moving 200 feet away can quickly turn into a lost hiker here in the Adirondacks. And that would not be good for anybody. So what I will say is use your best judgment and try to move a good deal away from the trail so that hikers coming up and down won't notice you. You're far enough off the trail, but not too far where you might not be able to find the trail again. It's also nice having a little privacy, right? Instead of going right off the side of the trail. And don't be the guy peeing 5 feet from the trail. Come on. Now, when it comes to going number 2, this is slightly different. The proper technique is to dig a 6-inch hole in the ground with, a nearby stick or a branch, squat down, and then just, let it rip over that hole. And then you bury your toilet paper in the hole and cover the hole back up with the dirt, throw some leaves on it, and that's how you do it. And now this is called a cat hole, in case you were wondering. Easy to do. It takes 10 seconds to dig. Now, the real hardcore people will tell you to take the toilet paper with you. But, of those real hardcore people telling you, to take the toilet paper with you, I'm willing to bet 90% of them are full of crap and don't actually do that themselves. They just tell you to do that, even though I guarantee you most of them aren't doing it themselves. But I think we can all collectively agree it's okay. Leave your toilet paper behind, put it in the hole with the rest of your business, cover it up, and move on. So to recap, move safely off the trail, take care of your business, and if you're going number 2, dig that cat hole first and then cover it back up when you're finished. And when you're here in the ADK, don't move so far off the trail that you won't be able to find the trail again if you get off your bearing. Number 8, moving on, let's talk about our canine companions on the trail. Now, full disclosure, I am a dog person. R.I.P. to Wilson the Silver Lab. We miss you. Personally, I love seeing dogs out on the trail because I know that's where dogs can be free. Dogs belong out there, whether you like it or not. They come alive when they're out in the woods. However, when it comes to hiking etiquette, it is important to learn and remember a few things when taking your dog into the backcountry. First and foremost, you need to know if your dogs are even permitted to be where you're going. When it comes to the ADK, dogs are allowed pretty much anywhere except AMR property, which are trails you're hiking from the St. Hubert's Au Sable Club trailhead, in case you're wondering. Don't forget to make your parking permit passes. Next, as per New York State regulations, dogs are actually supposed to be on a leash at all times. And some private property trails allow dogs off leash, but in general here in New York, dogs are supposed to be on a leash. And now, as I said, I love seeing dogs out there running their little hearts out. Dogs off leash, they don't bother me personally one bit. With that said, however, I absolutely do understand the reasoning for having to keep dogs on a leash. Remember, hiking etiquette is about making sure you're not doing anything to hurt someone else's trip, just like you don't want them doing something to hurt your trip. But a message for all my fellow dog people out there. Listen up, this might be hard to hear. Are you ready? Nobody cares about your dog as much as you do, and no one is as happy to see your dog as you are. Us dog people, we tend to forget when it comes to our own pets that, your dog may be a friendly cuddle monster, but that doesn't mean that anybody else cares or wants to cuddle with your dog or pet him or her and have them jump on you. Your dog may also be super friendly with other dogs, but that doesn't mean that he won't walk up to another dog on a leash who isn't friendly, thus creating, problems, and avoidable problems at that. There's also that whole subject of lost dog to talk about, especially here. And no, the New York State DEC will not respond to a lost dog call like they will a lost hiker call. In those situations, you are on your own. Another reason why being on a leash is important. Now, there's been 2, maybe 3 different times that I've been out hiking in the high peaks, and I've been asked by people if I've seen their dog as they desperately searched and called for them. It's honestly quite heartbreaking. But, it's avoidable with a leash. There's obviously as I mentioned, I love seeing dogs out there. However, without a leash, it is a risk that you're taking because, dogs will run off for a myriad of reasons. Chasing this or chasing that. It's just what they do. And it's something to be mindful of, especially if you're new to hiking or new to hiking with your dog. You kind of need to know your dog, and your dog needs to have some training before going out in a place like that. And it's always a safe bet to just keep your dogs on a leash to avoid all of these scenarios. And, of course, that whole legal and regulations aspect I talked about before. There's always going to be people who let their dog off leash. And again, I'm personally okay with it, assuming your dog is friendly, trained, and behaved enough to handle these elements. But it's up to you to train your pets and to know how they act before taking them off leash, especially on public land like hiking trails. Now, I'd recommend at the very least to just call them back to you and put them on their leash when they're passing other hikers out of just precaution if you're going to let them off the leash. Use your judgment. Now, I'm sure there's some listeners who are probably appalled by me saying all this, but hey, this is how I feel personally on the subject. I enjoy dogs, and I think they deserve to climb mountains too. And I think when they're off leash, especially with dogs who have been trained to do so, they come back right away. You know, they are friendly. They're not going to walk up on all these people or all these other dogs. I do think that there's a valid point to allowing them to have a good time, just like the rest of us. But again, I'm a dog person, and I understand, when it comes to hiking etiquette, that we're supposed to make sure other people have a good time as well, just like we don't want them to take away from our trip. We are putting other people first and thinking of other people. So that's why I gave all the information. But again, that's who I am. Now, when it comes to something else about your dog, what was I going to talk about? That's right. Dog poop. All right. Either bury it the same way that we bury our own poop, or bag it and take it with you. And no, that does not mean bag it and then leave it on the ground to grab it on your way out of the mountain. Nobody deserves to walk past your dog's bag of poop on the trail. And for the love of God, don't leave the poop bags at the trailhead thinking that somebody else will come pick it up. Some town person or some garbage man is going to pick it up. That is literally nobody's job to do that, and nobody is coming to pick up said garbage. Instead, you'll end up having someone like me picking up 23 bags of dog poop at the Cascade Mountain trailhead, putting them in my car and throwing them away in the garbage can at the corner store deli in Lake Placid out of the goodness of my own heart. Yes, that was disgusting. It's gross. It's disrespectful. And my God, is it poor trail etiquette. So let's avoid that the best we can. All right, to close out this episode on Hiking Etiquette 101, I just want to recommend checking out the Leave No Trace website if you never have, so you can learn more about the 7 Leave No Trace principles. I've also done an entire episode on this, so you can scroll back through the podcast and find that episode. I highly recommend it. We went through what the principles are and how they apply, and then we did a virtual hike of putting those principles in play. It was a fun episode. But their website is lnt.org. Leave No Trace, lnt.org. These principles, they help keep nature what it should be, and they help keep it enjoyable for us humans who have the privilege of experiencing it while keeping our impact on the land to a minimum. And if you're not familiar, the 7 principles of Leave No Trace are: plan ahead and prepare, travel and camp on durable surfaces, dispose of waste properly, leave what you find, minimize campfire impact, respect wildlife, and be respectful of others. These are terrific principles to live by in the outdoors, and I highly recommend learning more about them or checking out the podcast episode that I mentioned before. But that's where I'm going to leave it here on this Hiking Etiquette 101 episode here on the 46 of 46 podcast. Now, I'm sure there's plenty more trail etiquette information that'll probably pop in my head at some point, and I'll say, I should have mentioned this, or I should have mentioned that, or maybe you are too. But that's fine. This is a great start to help people avoid the common etiquette woes that people experience out there in the woods. And I want you all to have a quick learning curve so that you can feel confident when you go out there and have a great time, while also allowing those around you to have a great time as well, so we can all be respectful of one another when we're recreating in the great outdoors. The outdoors is for everybody who wants to experience it, and let's all work collectively at making that experience amazing for each and every one of us. But thanks for listening to this episode of the 46 of 46 podcast. I appreciate all of you listening. Check 46of46.com for more that I offer. I have an ebook for sale that'll give you all the information that you need if you want to start hiking the 46 high peaks, what trailheads to go to, what mountains pair well together. Lots of information in that book. It's available at 46of46.com. I have a guide service if you want to find someone to take you up the mountains. I offer all sorts of different things. Check it out. If you like this podcast, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. I really appreciate it. And check back on Fridays. Yes, I'm traveling right now for work. It's my busy time of year, but that is slowly winding down. And then it will be full steam ahead with more Adirondacks content coming your way. But that'll do it. Remember to always leave no trace, do the rock walk, and if you carry it in, carry it out. See you on the trails, everybody. And one other thing that just popped into my head, I didn't even mention. When you're hiking, hike on durable surfaces, as we mentioned with Leave No Trace. If there's rocks, walk on the rocks. If you're on the summits, stay off the summit vegetation and hike along the rocks. Do the rock walk, people. See you out there.